Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. The ODPM natural disaster simulation comes to an end as response agencies test nation's level of preparedness. The Ministry of Transport and Legal Affairs plead with nation's drivers as they launch their safe driving campaign. An electrical inspectorate department in San Fernando has a new home at Masca Building. Thank you for joining us. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, the ODPM, hosted the first ever 36-hour disaster simulation exercise, which ended on March 27th. Exercise Darkwave 2014 got on its way in Trinidad and Tobago, simulating real-life disasters, as if it were indeed to strike. Organized by the ODPM, the aim of the operations tested this country's readiness for a disaster.
At approximately 10 p.m. last evening, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Manzanilla in the Gulf of Paria in Trinidad and Tobago. The impact of this earthquake has caused nationwide devastation and is likely to a tsunami that hit Tobago at approximately 7:20 a.m.
No, don't be alarmed. Trinidad and Tobago is not really under tsunami watch or has suffered an earthquake. And while this is not Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, but an actor simulating a national message to the nation on the series of natural disasters, the address to the nation was just part of a nationwide simulation testing the emergency responsiveness codename Exercise Darkwave. The 36-hour drill commenced on Tuesday night with the simulation of citizen casualties at key locations across the country. All hands were on deck, including members of the Defense Force, Protective Services, ODPM, Red Cross, Trinidad and Tobago Amateur Radio Association, GISL and SEDIMA. Volunteers were mobilized at sites including Valencia and Diego Martin, with its main post located at the Attobolden Stadium in Couva, while alerts from the National Emergency Operations Center NEOC were disseminated via ticker tapes live on air, as well as live updates every hour on TV4. Citizens were made aware that the reports were all part of an exercise and a drill. Here at GISL, communicating the messages received to the public played a major role in its function in the entire operation. The ODPM expects that by continuously testing current systems and processes, gaps can be identified while improving overall preparedness, early warning systems, and the response capabilities of all agencies within the disaster management system. According to the ODPM, seismic disaster remains a threat to Trinidad and Tobago as it lies over two tectonic plates, the Caribbean Plate and the South American Plate, and is therefore highly vulnerable to these types of hazards. However, one of the major messages disseminated to members of the public included what to do in case of an emergency and the relevant authorities to contact.
Please stay tuned to your radios for information updates from the TIMA and the ODPM. Do not return to your homes unless authorities advise you to do so. All communities are advised to check on your neighbors. Help injured or trapped persons. Do not move seriously injured persons unless they are in immediate danger or for further injury. Please stay out of the damaged buildings. Enter homes with caution. Do not use electrical devices until electrical systems are checked. Do not use open flames. Check for gas leaks. I have every confidence that we as citizens of this beloved nation have the resolve and ability to overcome these challenges despite this disaster.
This particular exercise tests whether systems can handle a level 3 disaster. It not only tests the response capabilities of first responders, but the interoperability with local, regional, and international humanitarian assistance agencies. Following the exercise, it's expected that a post-mortem will be conducted over the entire operation to see its shortcomings and strengths with all stakeholders. Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
Staying with exercise Darkwave 2014, the test concluded on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. The exercise was aimed at testing this country's earthquake and tsunami preparedness, as well as response agencies involved in the national framework. Now, during a press conference with the media, Chairman of the Information Task Group, Andy Johnson, says it is the first time that the capacity of this national crisis communication mechanism was tested, and it was a welcomed opportunity to realize the strengths and weaknesses that needs improving.
Just over 1,400 citizens were not dead, 551 were not injured, and a further 250 were not missing. But that's what was simulated in an exercise put on by the Office of Disaster Preparedness Management, ODPM. Starting at 10 p.m. on Tuesday night and continuing until 10 a.m. on Thursday, an exercise simulating the potential effects of a 7.8 magnitude earthquake in the Gulf of Paria and an accompanying tsunami was ongoing. The exercise, codenamed Darkwave, staged a level 3 response to a disaster, and when the ODPM and local response units were overwhelmed, that triggered a level 3 response and the activation of the National Crisis Communication Framework. During this exercise, the Information Task Force relied on the resources of the Government Information Services Limited, GISL, to be able to get information to the media and the necessary stakeholders. In a press briefing with the media, CEO of GISL, Andy Johnson, said, in the case of an actual crisis, especially like this one simulated, good communication is vital to the public.
This is the first time that the capacity of this national crisis communication mechanism, as it is currently constructed, was tested, and it was a welcome opportunity to realize where there are strengths, where there are gaps, where there are weaknesses of the current arrangements, and the areas in there where we have to focus to provide some improvement.
He says GISL TV4 was able to test its interoperability with other media agencies and noted that while the company appreciated the support received, it will continue towards a seamless transition to crisis response mode if ever it becomes necessary.
GISL TV4, for those of you who may have paid any attention to what we were trying to do over the last 2 days, employed the use of a ticker tape, and reporters were on hand to report any updates and to keep citizens abreast of what is happening, what was happening in these simulated scenarios, just as they would be in a real live situation. So this exercise served to enhance our internal capabilities to respond to a crisis and to present scenarios for what would happen if and when the real thing takes place.
Mr. Johnson said the simulation did cause persons to respond to some real-life scenarios created, like the simulated incident at the Valencia Bridge and the block roads in Diego Martin, or the evidence of responder agencies in Matura. These scenes, he said, spoke directly to the levels of participation and readiness.
So in fact, some measure of dislocation, concern, and probably exasperation were experienced. But there again, those things were done, were put into effect to test people's responses for what would happen in a real crisis. So I would like to thank the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, Dr. Stephen Ramrup, who is the CEO of the ODPM, for creating the opportunity for us to do this. And I wish to congratulate everyone who would have participated, played any role in this simulation.
CEO of ODPM, Dr. Stephen Ramrup, says this exercise is about creating a culture of resilience.
We want to create a national exercise day. We want this day to be coinciding with our test in the Caribbean. So that was one of our aims, and it was achieved. What we found over the period from Tuesday night at 10 p.m. to this morning at around 10 a.m. when we stood down the exercise, we had the full participation of the 14 municipalities.
Damage caused by or simulated during the exercise Darkwave included the destruction of infrastructure, including bridges and buildings like fire stations and police stations. The simulation was designed to test the country's response to a level 3 disaster. As a consequence of the tests, some members of the public in affected areas may have believed the events to be actually occurring. Also, as part of the exercise, an imitating Prime Minister advised citizens to refrain from coastal areas, damaged buildings, and to pay attention to emergency broadcasts. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
News 4 continues right after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The public now has a new office to visit at the Electrical Inspectorate Department in San Fernando. The move from its old sub-office on Independence Avenue to Masca Building in La Romaine will facilitate ample parking and office space for its members of staff.
The San Fernando arm of the Electrical Inspectorate Department, EID, received keys to its brand new home located at a Masca Building in La Romaine. The Electrical Inspectorate Division, EID, is a unit of the Ministry of Public Utilities. The division comprises of over 55 officers and is headed by the Chief Electrical Inspector, who is responsible for the administration, regulation and enforcement of the acts as they relate to the inspection of electrical installations and the licensing of electricians and cinema operators. Members of staff welcome the new office spaces where customers will meet them and inquire their services. Chief Electrical Inspector Marlon Williams expressed what the new space will do for staff.
We had to build a service counter for the public, cashier's cage to comply with financial regulations, internal offices, signage for the building, relocate telephones and electricity services and so on. And of course, we had to move our office from Gulf Insurance, lock, stock and barrel, to here. And all that was achieved within the time frame that we set, and on the 5th of March 2014, we opened to the public here and achieved all our targets.
Public Utilities Minister Nizam Bakhsh explained the significance the expansion of the building will have to the ministry's commitment to improving customer service.
Our corporate vision highlights the service-oriented nature of the work that we do at the Ministry of Public Utilities. It says that we aim to, and I quote, become an organization dedicated to excellence in the delivery of public utilities for the sustainability of our country and the improved quality of life of its citizenry. Central to this vision is our continued commitment to provide high quality and professional service to our customers, and also one that is timely and responsive to their expectations.
The functions of the Electrical Inspectorate Division includes ensuring homes and commercial spaces have a safe electrical wiring system that has met satisfactory standard of safety. Part of its mission is to also safeguard the well-being of citizens and their property from injury and fire, to maintain the integrity of wiring systems and their equipment through timely and meticulous electrical inspections. The EID also assures the practical safeguarding of all persons and their property from hazards which may arise from their usage of electricity. Permanent Secretary Jacinta Bailey-Sobers says the division has been effective in a number of areas, including boosting revenue.
For fiscal 2014, I have noted that you intend as a division to undertake some 36,000 inspections and to generate an estimated 5.4 million in revenue for the government, whilst providing at the same time advisory services to at least 40,000 members of the public. Now, these are formidable tasks, formidable targets, I should say, and it behoves the ministry to make every effort to ensure that you are equipped to achieve your goals and objectives.
Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
In other news, Minister of Legal Affairs, the Honorable Prakash Ramadar, is pleading with drivers to realize the consequences of speeding and driving recklessly on the nation's roads. He makes the plea as the Ministry of Transport launched its Promoting Safe Driving campaign.
The Transport Ministry has partnered with DriveWise Canada and Airline Training Solutions Limited for its Promoting Safe Driving campaign. The campaign aims to introduce safe driving through the use of simulated modules for drivers. DriveWise was a choice partner as it is Canada's leading road safety and driver education company. It uses state-of-the-art learning tools and driving simulators to produce interactive learning programs that educate the participant. Legal Affairs Minister Prakash Ramadar praises the initiative and says many times persons are ignorant to the dangers of speeding until it hits home. He uses himself as an example and says the death of several relatives in a car accident years ago helped him to realize the need for speed can be deadly.
When my cousin died, and 3 others of his extended family died in that accident, it brought me to this sober understanding. I've never been a drinker, nor shall I be, but that thing that gives you that burst of energy and that juice that you think is necessary for your life will take you. Speed, carelessness, negligence on the road.
He's calling on persons to take responsibility for their actions on the road.
We say you've lost control. You gave up control because the laws of physics are always with us. And a vehicle traveling at 100 miles an hour and in poor conditions will not stop because you wish it to. The laws of physics take care of that.
Minister Ramadar is reminding persons that driving isn't a game and persons can actually die on the roads. The father of one is pleading with drivers to see the hurt which can be caused by reckless driving.
It's about recklessness, and it is really a character defect that you do not care about others. You do not care about yourself, you do not care about your families, and you're willing to put their lives and their limbs at risk. Wake up and understand the pain that you can cause. How selfish it is to take someone else's life. Yours, that's a matter for you. But you should not jeopardize anybody else and their lives. Know full well that even if you survive the awfulness of your act, you may live all of your life in agony. Not just emotional, but physical pain. When you look upon the scars to your face and to your body that God gave to you, you're destroyed by your willful act or negligence in acting. As I say, there is no reset in life. But we have now an opportunity to set ourselves straight, to learn to do the right thing, to be our brother's keeper on our roads.
Meanwhile, Minister of Transport, the Honorable Stephen Cadiz, reveals there are plans to introduce juvenile driving permits which will place restrictions on young drivers.
We're going to start off with juvenile permits, okay? That when you get age 17, when you go for your license, you're going to be restricted. You cannot tell me at age 17 that you have enough experience and sense and understanding of what a 3-lane highway does, of what the weight of I don't know, whatever vehicle you're driving. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Rodney mentioned, that if you're doing 100 miles an hour and you want to stop, you're going to be stopping however many meters down the road. I mean, all of these are things that people have to understand. And it takes time to understand. It takes time to understand the road. It takes time to understand your reaction time. Everybody is different. So we are proposing that we have a juvenile driving permit, which is going to restrict driving, for instance, between midnight and 5 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing out at night at 17 years old at 3 o'clock in the morning? I mean, I think that's being a little bit irresponsible.
The juvenile permit is just one of the many measures which will be introduced to curb the death rate on the nation's roads. Minister Cadiz reveals the measures will all be included in a proposed Motor Vehicle Authority Act, which is expected to be placed before Parliament soon. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
When we come back, we take a look at an Olympic legend. Stay with us. On Monday, Trinidad and Tobago lost an Olympic legend in the person of Rodney Wilkes. Here is Wayne Cunningham with a profile of the nation's first Olympic medalist.
The mighty midget is what they call him. Rodney Adolphus Wilkes was born on March 11, 1925 in San Fernando and is considered as the best weightlifter the nation ever produced. He first came to international notice when he won gold at the 1946 Central American and Caribbean Games in Colombia. That performance included record lifts of 205 pounds in the press and 210 pounds in the snatch, as well as a 275-pound clean and jerk effort. 2 years later, he followed that with a silver medal at the London Olympics, where he competed in the featherweight division and became this country's first Olympic medalist. In 1950, he defended his title at the CAC Games, and in 1951, Wilkes added another gold, winning at the first ever Pan American Games held in Buenos Aires, Argentina. 1952 was an Olympic year, and the Games were hosted in Helsinki, Finland, with Wilkes in attendance once again to compete amongst the featherweights. The man, also known as the Midget Atom, took bronze behind two lifters from the Soviet Union. Following a brief hiatus, he returned to competition in 1954 at the British Empire and Commonwealth Games in Vancouver, Canada, where he took gold. At the next installment of these said games, held in Cardiff, Wales, he managed bronze. He just missed the podium at his third Olympics in Melbourne, Australia, placing fourth with combined lifts of 330 kilograms, missing out on a medal by 1 place and 5 kilograms. He continued competing through the 1960s, but was not chosen for the West Indies Federation team for the Rome Olympics and then retired. The Honourable Anne Roberts, Minister of Sport, had this to say at the passing of a legend. I have always admired Rodney Wilkes for believing in himself while pursuing what was not a popular sport in the 1940s. Largely training himself, receiving little reward for his efforts, but quite humbly beating the best in the world to become the country's first Olympic medalist. Wilkes' historic feat at the Olympic Games, as well as his other achievements at international level, are not forgotten by those of us in the sports industry, who believe that his efforts are an inspiration to those who dream of success in their chosen sport. We are extremely grateful for the time he spent with us and wish to honor his life in a suitable manner. The ministry stands ready to offer whatever support is required for his final farewell." End quote. Wilkes was honored by the ministry at the inaugural Spirit of Sport Awards in 2011 with a Lifetime Achievement Award, which was accompanied by a monthly stipend to cover his living and medical expenses. We at News 4 Sports, as well as the Ministry of Sport and the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago and the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, offer our deepest condolences to the family of Rodney Wilkes at this time. Wayne Cunningham, News 4 Sports.
News 4 continues right after the break. Stay with us.
If you suspect your community is under attack by criminals, call 999 or 911. If you witness a crime being committed, call 999 or 911. If you see any suspicious activity, call 999 or 911.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Investment and the National Investment Promotions Agency, InvestTT Limited, hosted an investment delegation from Saudi Arabia led by His Excellency Dr. Fahad Al Dawood. A media release from the ministry states that the delegation visiting for the period of March 24th to 28th paid a courtesy visit to Senator the Honorable Vasant Barath, Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, at his Nicholas Towers office in Port of Spain. His Excellency noted the major developments taking place in Trinidad and Tobago and expressed keen interest in establishing stronger investment ties through investment in sectors such as tourism, which he believes can attract many tourists from Saudi Arabia. Following the courtesy call, InvestTT delivered a comprehensive presentation to the visiting delegation outlining specific investment opportunities in the Twin Island Republic. Well, as we wrap up, parents are being urged to enlist themselves and their children into various clubs to help decrease aggression and learn discipline. This advice comes from Captain the Honorable Gary Griffith, Minister of National Security.
Speaking with members of the media following the 104th anniversary of the Trinidad and Tobago Cadet Force, Captain the Honorable Gary Griffith, the Minister of National Security, recommended that parents and their children join various clubs to help decrease aggression and learn discipline.
The minister's comments come on the heels of an upsurge in violence among school children. Speaking with members of the media at the TNT Cadet Force 104th Anniversary Church Parade at the Santa Rosa RC Church in Arima, the minister said the Brownies and Scouts for girls in primary school and cadets in secondary school should be used for enhancing the nation's young people, as these groups are taught discipline, respect, camaraderie, and utilizes their energy in the right manner. Minister Griffith says he plans to establish the cadet force in every secondary school. Felicia Wilson, More News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Thank you for joining us.